Hey there, it's JohnBerry555, and welcome to my review of Star Wars Andor Season 1, Episode 8, Narkina 5, or the Narkina 5. Regardless, we can just move right on to talking about the episode. So my overall thoughts, so these are my swirly thoughts, just the general overview. This episode sets up basically the next stage in Andor's character development, but also in the formation of the rebellion. We see Luthen. Okay, we're getting to spoilers now, but some of the stuff was in the trailers. We see Luthen trying to bring more cells together. We also see we finally see the prison stuff that we saw in the trailers. We also see increasingly the Empire cracking down on any form of dissent, no matter how trivial, and how life is like for those the Empire actually has oppressed, and also the ISB's hunt to find Andor. But before we get to that, let's talk about the political intrigue, everything dealing with Mon Mothma. So, in many ways, it is a bit repetitive. It's the same political intrigue that we saw in previous times before, her putting on one face with some people and a different face with other people, speaking in veiled wording, so that way the Empire and any spies listening won't be able to figure out what's really going on. But it is repetitive, but I think that's the point. The political intrigue, the game never ends. You always have to be stating the same stuff over again. You're never actually going to get anywhere. But you might, but you never expect to get anywhere. So it's going to be the same old stuff over and over again. The same veiled threats. The same just keeping your true intentions hidden. All that's the same. I think that's intentional. I think it's supposed to be repetitive to show us how the political wheels are stuck, or they're not changing at all. While Mon Mothma is, coating the wheels of power, getting funny with the Rebel Alliance, Luthen's, he's listening into stuff. He actually goes to see Saw Gerrera to try to get him more involved in a greater rebel movement rather than acting on his own, trying to like, hey, I'll give you these parts and supplies you need, but in exchange, I'll give them for you for free. But you have to go help this other rebel cell, which Saw doesn't want you. And Saw very much, in his rebuttal, he very much intensifies why the Rebel Alliance is having such difficulty forming. You have separatists, you have rebels, you have anti-imperialists, you have people who are fighting to restore the Republic, you have anarchists, which is alluded Saw to be one. You got human supremacists, I think even Saw. Like, there's so many different rebels and factors and partisan groups fighting the Empire. It seems like Saw, he doesn't want to work with any of them because they're not advancing his interests. And I think part of what we're going to see is Luthen Mon Mothma working and trying to bring those cells together to actually form a rebel alliance. Not to mention, it's just amazing how Luthen and Saw just, even though I think they both knew that Luthen was responsible for the attack on Ardari, they both play like they don't know who it is, but think the other. They both act the exact same way, and that's just a neat little scene. It does show that they have worked together. They may not be proper allies per se, but they're definitely no strangers to each other. Of course, during all of this, Cassian, he's hiding out, but he was captured at the end of the last episode by the Empire on trumped up charges. Man, imagine if they actually knew what charges he would face if they actually had his right name and he didn't, pretend to have another name, or just if they just knew he was on Ardari. It's quite interesting that they had one of the people responsible but didn't realize it. But that's neither here nor there, because Cassian is sent to a prison, an Imperial prison, and you can tell he's not sure exactly what's going on, probably because he expected just to be incarcerated briefly on whichever planet he has been captured on. I don't think he was actually expected to have the Empire send him off planet to some other prison facility. I do not think that he expected that. And he ends up being sent to a work prison. The work prison that Cassian is sent to is on, I'm thinking it's a moon, Narkina 5, the episode's title. And it is a work prison where the prisoners are forced to work, but not only are they forced to work, but they are encouraged by basically threat of punishment to be as productive as possible. So it's organized in such a way that each prisoner is somewhat competing against each other, because each prisoner is assigned to a table that they have to work at, which is assigned to a room, which is assigned to, it's just keep on every single stage of it, there is some form of competition. And whichever table is the most productive in each room gets flavor in the food, and whichever is the least productive gets punished. And that's creating a sense of competition, making so that prisoners can't actually work together. It's a divide and conquer strategy that authoritarians and fascists use all the time to cement their power and their control. But that power is not absolute. We see in one scene, one prisoner is communicating to another prisoner using some form of hand signs, so a sign language. So there is communication between the different rooms and the different cells, or not cells per se, but between those different groups that the Empire has forcibly isolated the prisoners apart. And Cassian saw that, so I'm thinking when he figured out how he's going to get out here, I have a feeling those hand signals will somehow be used to facilitate that in some form. It's just a thought I had, but I think it could be quite interesting. And another neat little thing as well I picked up on is there was more than one prison on this planet. So each individual prison facility is probably competing against each other for that productivity. It's not just each block in the prison and each room in the block. It's a full level of competition, so they can't work together because the prisoners outnumber the guards. Prisoners outnumbering guards is nothing new to a prison. It's very much a factor of many prisons where you have more prisoners than guards, and they normally control it by essentially stripping the prisoners of all their rights. And really, the Empire takes that to the extreme. The floor of their cell block is basically some kind of electrified. That means if in the middle of the night they stand up to stretch and step outside the cell, they're dead. If there's a prison riot, the floor is being turned on, and the prisoners are probably going to be dead. So not only are they controlling them to the standard prison stuff for dehumanizing them, forcing them to do menial labor that probably a droid, especially in Star Wars, could do, or some form of machinery, but they're also literally dehumanizing them in the sense that they're not getting good food, they're just getting nutritional food. They're basically getting nothing. No liberties, no freedoms at all. While Cassian's in that prison, things are not doing that well on Ferrix. Cassian's adopted mother Marva is not doing well. It's pretty much implied that she's sick and that she's fallen more than once since Cassian has left, and that she's hoping to do some kind of attack against the Empire, even though she's not really capable of it. And so Cassian's probably two best friends on Ferrix, so Bix and Joplin, are doing their best to take care of her, but clearly she's being quite stubborn and doing her own thing. But you can definitely tell everything's not doing super well on Ferrix. The Empire's presence is even greater than when we last saw Ferrix in the last episode. They're just everywhere, and by the end of the episode, we see that the ISB is on the planet. And the ISB is on that planet looking for Cassian, because that's the only lead they have on Cassian. They still haven't connected him to Ardari yet, but it's only a matter of time, I'm sure. But so they interrogated one of Bix's friends, and that's who Bix uses his shop to get in contact with Luthen. And then Bix is arrested by the ISB, and they take her in to be interrogated. Supervisor Dedra is the one who's doing all this. And what's quite interesting is that during all this, she interrogates and all that. Bix tries to run, but she is captured. But when she's brought in for questioning, her friend is there, and Dedra purposely leaves him there so Bix to see, but acts like it was not supposed to be, trying to intimidate Bix into talking, because she wants to find where Cassian is. Of course, Ferrix is not the only source of information to find Cassian that the ISB has at their disposal, because there's also Cyril, who's brought in by Dedra to be interrogated. Apparently he's been submitting false reports trying to hunt down Cassian. Of course, that gets the attention of the ISB, but besides giving the ISB some information and thinking he could work with them, the ISB wants to use him but not work with him. They're not recruiting him, they're just questioning him as a person of interest. And clearly Cyril is not comfortable with that. He wants to be involved in hunting down Cassian. And it does make me wonder, how much will his loyalty to the Empire and Order impact his decision making? Could there come to be a point where he's fighting the rebels and the Empire? It'd be very interesting to see a literal authoritarian fascist rebel. It would be interesting to see that, and I would like to see that explored. And given how Andor as a show has been showing us a darker side of the Rebel Alliance and the Rebels, in some ways it wouldn't be that far stretched to see that there are factions of the Rebel Alliance who are anti-democracy, who are anti-freedom, who are essentially the only reason why they're against the Empire is because they believe the Empire is not properly securing order. And like, sure, we saw conflict with Saw and the Rebel Alliance, both in Rebels and in Rogue One, and a bit between the conversation between Luthen and Saw earlier in the episode, but I'm just wondering, it would be very interesting to see if there's a faction of rebels who are literally at odds with the rest of the rebels on everything but being against the Empire. And Zero would fit that bill. Probably won't happen, but it's a weird thought that I had while watching this episode. I'm willing to see what happens. But going back to Ferrix, the ISB is not the only potential threat on Ferrix, as Vel and Cinta are on Ferrix trying to find Cassian because Luthen's assistant has instructed them to kill Cassian. And for very much, I think Cinta is more likely to kill Cassian outright, while Vel is probably more willing to question Cassian and maybe properly recruit him. Because I very much get the impression from their conversation that Cinta is more extreme, for lack of a better term. We know that they are a couple and all that, but it's very clear that Cinta is much more committed to the cause, to fighting the Empire, than Vel is. In terms of, now, Vel is still very committed, we can tell that, but she's more like, we'll fight the Empire, but it's okay if we take a break every once in a while to recoup and indulge in our personal actions. But there's some conflict between them, in showing the Rebel Alliance is not a unified force yet. That's my main takeaways from the episode. There's a lot going on, but I really am excited how they're showing the Rebel Alliance being built, and how the Rebel Alliance is not yet a cohesive force, and how even once they become more unified, they may still not be cohesive and fully united. I can't wait to see that developed, and I really can't wait for the next episode. I can't wait to see the prison break, because there's going to be a prison break. Cassian has to get out. Rogue One is coming up eventually in the timeline. But that concludes my overall thoughts on the episode. I thought it was a very good one, and I really just can't wait for the next episode. But I would love to hear from you. Let me know in the comment section down below, what did you think of Narkina 5? I would love to hear from you, and as always, feel free to check out in the links in the description, like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel if you have not yet done so. And as always, have a good day, a good night, wherever you are. May the force be with you, always.